Joining us now, she's been a friend of the show, coming in as her entering her first season as the head coach at Texas A&M. Speaking of Trisha Ford, who joins us, I'm still getting used to saying it. How does it still? Is it still kind of registered with you here, Coach? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on. Yes, it has registered. I think going through recruiting all through the summer and into this fall, obviously having so many conversations, it's just kind of second nature now. So the transition's been very smooth.
Let's take us through that from our audience because it is unique. Anytime you have to move, you've done it before, but this is unique. You're going from the out west to out to Texas, and there's family situations you have to care. So just kind of take us from the start, how when this kind of opportunity presented itself, and just take us through this kind of unique year for you and your family.
Yes. Well, for those that don't know, my whole family had relocated to Arizona. My parents lost everything in a fire in Paradise, California. So they had relocated to Arizona. And then I have a younger sister with 4 kids. So everybody is in Arizona. And so it was a crazy, I would say 48 hours, to be honest with you. But when you know, and luckily for me, my family is very understanding of kind of my job and what that looks like, and they knew that there was a possibility of one more move from once I got to ASU. I had said there might be one more move. So yeah, I mean, so that's my extended family. And then obviously my family, I have my husband. You can't do this without a very supportive significant other. And he was a college football coach. So he thoroughly understands the ins and outs of kind of what we do. And so, for us, obviously he was on board, but then things just moved super quick. So we were very separated, I would say, during the summer. My daughter is 15 and plays competitive travel ball. So I'm a travel ball mom as well. So it was balancing the travel ball, my new position, and then also moving the family to Texas. So lots of fun.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you sharing that because I think we always get caught up as fans, media, like the transaction. Oh, this coach is going to this coach, and we kind of forget these are human beings. They got families. You got things. I mean, there's a lot that goes more to it. So I'm curious. You obviously it was a great opportunity. But how stressful was that time period for you as far as deciding whether, hey, this is the right? Because I know you were happy at Arizona State with things you're doing there, but this is an incredible opportunity in itself in Texas A&M. It's a good problem to have, all right? So I mean, a lot of people would like to have that problem, but take me through that process as you're making that decision and kind of the stress that comes with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't look at it as really stress. It's really about opportunity. And like you said, I'm very blessed to have this opportunity. And really, it's not about me. It's about kind of what's the right fit for my family, and then what does my staff look like? Jeff Harger and Russ Heffley both came with me from ASU, and those were key components. So I was on the phone with them quite a bit, but things kind of move fast in our world. That's kind of athletics 101. And I did it at ASU. I also did it previously at Fresno State. And so I think you're as prepared as you are. It's kind of like having kids, right? You're as prepared as you can be. So obviously this would be my third one. So I was a little bit more prepared, and our family knew kind of what that looked like. But I think for us, it was, my husband was part of the kind of recruitment process. And so he came with me on my interview and those types of things. So that piece is really big for me. And obviously I talked to Coach Harger and he was, somebody that I really, wanted to come with me because I know that I'm successful because of the people around me. So I think those were two really key pieces that really helped make that decision.
What was that moment as you're going through that process? You're talking to Texas A&M. What was that moment or things or two that you're like, okay, I got to take this. I can't pass this up. What was it that stood out?
Oh gosh, really my conversation with the administration and then the facilities. I think those are two big things. When you look at kind of what you're doing and in our world, support of the program is huge. Your relationship with who you report to is huge. And can you recruit there, right? Like you can have all kinds of bells and whistles, but can you recruit to this particular place? And I think, when I stepped foot, in Davis Diamond, it just felt like home. I don't know how, I was in awe, I felt like, okay, I can see myself here. And really, that night, I got a little spoiled. We got to go to a baseball postseason game. That was my interview process. So anybody who knows me knows that like I love baseball. That was where I spent my bachelorette party, was at a baseball game. So I don't know if they knew that, but they didn't. But that was kind of my best interview. And that night at the hotel, my husband just looked at me and he's like, I think this is the right fit. And so I think, it's just, if you know, and there's been other opportunities that I know that weren't the right fit, but this just felt right.
Wow, I didn't know you had your bachelorette party at a baseball stand. What? Wait, expand on that. Wait, we'll get back. Wait, that's a first I've heard that. Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, I always say I'm going to be that old lady watching Sunday day games at the ball field when I'm retired. I just love baseball. I love, kind of the history of it. I don't know. I'm not one that thinks the game is too slow. I really appreciate kind of what it's about. I don't know. I enjoy it. I'm a diehard Giants fan. Hopefully we're gonna, turn some things around. But yeah, I'm one of those weirdos.
Hey, look, I like baseball just as much as you do. So you don't have to apologize for that. And you picked that's a good. Was the baseball one you went? Was that the super regional against Louisville that they?
No, it was regionals.
Regionals. Well,
yeah.
that's not too bad. Of course, they had a really good year in the baseball side, getting to the World Series, and they had a coach. They have their coach who also had to make a transition coming over from a marquee baseball program. Kind of similar move to your move. I don't know if there was any interaction you've had with the, kind of as far as, the adjustment period.
Yeah, I mean, their staff has been wonderful. We've gone over to their place a couple of times and just, kind of, I don't know, just traded stories, traded ideas, have you done, have you been able to do this or how do you do that? They've been very, very helpful. So, obviously when all of this was going on in the interview, like Schloss was in his, postseason. I did not talk to him, just kind of, let him do his thing. But I would think, the one thing about A&M that I've really enjoyed, and something those that know me, I loved my time at Fresno. And it was that kind of small community feel. And I think what Texas A&M is it has that same feel, but with the big time college athletics. And I think that's really the combination that I've been looking for. And so I think that's what made me really fit in with A&M.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because we had Andrew Haynes, who does the radio for Texas. He used to call your games at Fresno. He moved from Fresno, Texas, and I asked about your move, and he said she's gonna like it because it's very similar to Fresno and State of Tech with A&M in Texas. So it's funny you bring that up. You both are thinking the same thing from that standpoint. I really like that. So you make the move, but now you have to obviously figure out your coaching staff. You mentioned Jeff Harger there, but also your roster. In today's day and age in college softball, there's comings and goings with the transfer portal and everything. So what was that like to deal with all of that, and what has that been like with the players that stayed and getting them to buy in and then bringing in new players? And then, oh, by the way, you're recruiting for the future. I mean, there was a lot going on here that really it's still kind of brand new for coaches. This wasn't around, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's a juggling act for sure. And that's why it's so important that Jeff he came with me, because him and I really understand each other and have a really good system. And so he kind of hit the road recruiting, right? I took care of our team, the current, so those that elected to stay. And then we were both working on the portal piece of that, which we're always working on the portal. That's kind of, the nature of the beast in the summertime. And so I think we just, you have a tag team, kind of a plan of attack. And it was crazy. I think, I saw my family, my actual family, maybe, I saw my daughter at tournaments because she's playing in the tournaments that I'm recruiting at. So that was good. But, we just had help from everybody, help from parents on her team. My son was also in baseball all-star. So we were, it was crazy. I didn't know what city I was in. And Jeff Toole, who's my sport administrator at A&M, was like, did I really hire you? Do you exist? Because I wasn't in the office, and so, we just laugh about it now, but I think that's part of the fun part is putting those pieces together, seeing your vision, kind of starting to lay that foundation. And it was a crazy summer. I have enjoyed this week, and I will enjoy next week of kind of taking a deep breath and spending some time with my family.
Do you think going through this experience probably enhances your belief? I know in January there's a vote for the extra full-time assistant position for softball and baseball among them. It sounds like it's optimistically it's going to pass. That's been talked about for a few years. Is this an example here where, man, we could use an extra body? Because it is a lot of work for the current number of staff that you can use.
Absolutely. I think, honestly, I think we could use at least two more, if I'm being honest. There's just so much that goes on in kind of the head coaching position. And we have such a specialized units out on that field. So you have pitching, you have catching, you have infield, outfield, you have hitting, and then you have recruiting pieces, and so I think when you're really looking at being a GM or managing that program, who is able to fill those pieces at a high level. And so, yes, it would have been extremely helpful for us to be able to have that extra body out there. And I think, honestly, moving forward, as we kind of move into this new business model, I think that piece is really huge. And the other piece that I'm going to, just keep on pounding about, and Karen's the same way, is just, why are we not a headcount sport? Those would be my two things that I really would love for us to relook at as just I don't know, as a sport. Why, do certain athletes get this amount for playing, doing the same thing that our softball players are doing? And so, getting more support and getting that for the student athletes, and then obviously from a scholarship piece, I think are two areas that we could really see some huge growth in.
Yeah, we've had Karen Weekly, talk about that at length, a little bit of that. What has it been like with you dealing now, getting to know the SEC coaches? There's a lot of them, for sure, a little bigger room than the Pac-12 coaches. But what has that been like? Obviously, getting to know them at their coaches' meetings, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it is such a small world. I've had prior relationships with almost everybody in the conference. So, Tim and I did USA together. Karen and I cross paths with that. Beth and I are pitching people, so we always are going back and forth. I just think, there's just been a huge, it's just me kind of coming into their space now, and Tony from Georgia. I mean, I could go on and on. It's been a really, it's been, like I said, it's been an easy transition, and really, we had our first head coaches meeting down in Birmingham this fall. And, for me, it was just, they wanted to hear some ideas that I had. And obviously I just, kept my mouth shut for the most part and just, listened, which, if you know me, I don't keep my mouth shut very often. So it was just it's a good group. It's a very professional group.
Well, you're the rookie, right? So you kind of like you'll need to learn the landscape there. Did you get any advice, not necessarily from SEC coaches, but just coaches in general, as far as moving to A&M, SEC? Any advice that has stuck out that you've kind of applied to some that they've told you as you going into this?
Gosh, the biggest advice is just, you're prepared for this, do what you do, stay comfortable in kind of what you do and what's worked for you. I think that's coaching 101, is just being comfortable in your skin and realizing that you can't do everything, as a mom, as a wife, as a coach, you got to kind of pick your battles and be okay with kind of, what you can and can't do. And so I think, at the end of the day, do things the right way and treat people the right way. I think, we'll get you far.
Obviously, you mentioned why you brought Jeff Harger, how important he was to this equation, but you also have to fill out the rest of the staff. You bring in Joe Guthrie, who was a sitting head coach, was a head coach at UAB. You bring, obviously, you mentioned Russ. Talk about the rest of the staff and your vision there, especially bringing in Joe.
Yeah, Joe was just, for me, kind of a dream hire. He was somebody that, we sat down quite a bit and talked, about defense, and that's kind of his forte. And that's what he, obviously is going to do here at A&M. And, when I look at Jeff and I, there's things that I think we do really well, but then I also think, and him and I were having this conversation at ASU, like, hey, where do we think we are, I don't know, just where can we improve? I think that's something that I take a lot of pride in. And the reason why I have Jeff on staff is A, because he's great, but B, he gives me very honest answers. I don't want somebody who tells me I'm great, we're doing great, like everything's great. I really want to improve. I want to challenge, and I need somebody that has a backbone that will say, hey, like, I think, X, Y, and Z. And so when him and I had talked, we had thought that from the defensive standpoint, we should bring in somebody from a defensive specialist. And obviously Joe being a head coach, he kind of understands things at a different level, and he's managed teams, he's been an assistant, he's been in the pro league, he's kind of been there and done it at every different level. And then he also brings our Southern recruiting tie, and I thought that other piece was really important. So obviously being in Alabama, he's from Alabama, there was just a lot of connecting points that I felt like was going to work really well for us. I think the other thing is, as Joe is a tireless recruiter, worker, and that's something that's really important to me, because we will part ways fast if you don't want to work and kind of hit the ground running. And I think that was something that was really exciting when we were going through that process. And so Joe's obviously taken over that defensive end. And then Russ Heffley, he's been with me since ASU as well. He came over as our volunteer coach. And, for me, he's just somebody that can really read the room. And what I mean by that is, he can figure out the team dynamics really quickly, figure out, okay, we got to get this kid going. We got to get this kid going. Something's kind of going over here. When you work in corrections for 27 years, you know how to read the room, and so your life kind of depends on it, and obviously he has a background in athletics, and he's, done softball and football and a variety of different things. But I think, again, you just want to make sure that when you're putting a staff together, you kind of have some balance. And Hef is somebody that I can put him with catchers, I can put him with outfield. I trust him with my life, and somebody that I really think helps with that transition piece.
Yeah. Very good. What was the fall like as you got to with this group, your players? What did you learn about the group of players you have?
Oh man, the fall has been great. They've been very open-armed, very, I don't know, eager to learn, I guess would be the best thing for me, how me to describe it. And it's just been refreshing. It's great to go out there and, just, hey, like, how can I get better? How can I get better? And, obviously implementing a new system, they were like, oh my gosh, this is hard, blah, blah, blah. But by the end of fall, they really saw a lot of their numbers jump up, and really understanding kind of the science of what we're doing and how we train and why we train. So that was really cool, having those end of the fall meetings with each individual player, and then being like, hey, coach, like, I did this, this, and this. And I'm like, absolutely. And, numbers never lie. So it's not something that I can say like, oh, this is what I saw. No, like, this is actually what happened. And for me, that's how you continue to get buy-in. And the more buy-in you get, the better you get as a unit, right? And so, like, I have trust with them, and they have trust with me.
Did players establish themselves as leaders? Is that still evolving?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always evolving, if I'm being honest with you. But yes, we absolutely have. And really, with the traditions and kind of what Texas A&M stands for from a culture standpoint, you really have a team full of leaders. And I think that's something that rings hard in Aggie land. And we've had some players, for me, kind of our structure, our juniors are kind of the class that really leads. Seniors, I let them be seniors, like, enjoy your year, like, be the example that the freshmen need to see. Like, hey, I want to be like so-and-so by the time, enjoy it. But juniors are really the group that kind of has to be your nuts and bolts. And they've done a tremendous job. The junior class has here with really taking that on and helping the freshmen along and setting our standards and, just kind of pushing people when they need to push them and hugging on them when they need a hug on them. And so I think that piece has been really good.
What's it been like being around the campus, the history of this program? It's a historic program with Joe Evans built there, with players like Amanda Scarborough, Megan Gibson, Geronimo McDonald, Jamie Loprice, on and on, Tori Vidalis. I mean, and that stadium, which you mentioned, is incredible. It is one of the premier stadiums in the sport. How much have you taken that in, of the history and tradition, and how much do you talk to your players and recruits about that? Because that sells itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the one thing that really distinguishes A&M from most universities, just the rich tradition. Obviously, Joe, being there for 26 years, I mean, you talk about somebody that's done it for a long time, done it the right way. And I can't thank her enough. She's been so helpful in the transition. I've called her, I've texted with her. She texted me, and obviously she's super busy because she's transitioned to Santa Barbara, but that's kind of who Jill Evans is. She's a class act, on and off the field. And so I think that's been very helpful. Obviously, Amanda and our paths have crossed because of the pitching world and her doing ESPN, and same with Jamie. And, we have an alumni group that we put together that we're continuing to work on to kind of connect those pieces. And really selfishly, I tell them it's for me to like, okay, what are some things like, don't mess up on this, don't mess up on this. And they've been so helpful though, of just like, hey, we're excited to have you. We love Coach Evans, but we're excited for kind of that next step of the program. So I think, it's kind of bittersweet for them, but they've been very open armed. Megan Gibson runs a 12 program here in College Station. And so, I laugh because the last time I was at A&M, I was an assistant for John Rittman at Stanford, and we came here for super regional. So my 15-year-old daughter was a baby, and so she came as well. And we were on Old Aggie, the old field. And so it's just a full circle effect. But it's just, Texas A&M, when you go to Midnight Yell, I mean, I walked into my first Midnight Yell, which is the midnight, practicing of the yells of the 12th man, the student section, and there's 40,000 students in there. Like you can't really wrap your head around it until you experience it.
That's incredible. Well, I know this. They're gonna. The one thing I know with Amanda and Megan, they're gonna ask you a lot about pitching, because that's what you all have in common there. You mentioned it, so I will go ahead and ask for them. How is the pitching looking this year? What stands out about your pitchers, and what can Aggie fans expect?
Yeah, well, we have a lot of variety, and I think that's what I'm really excited about. We have 5 arms, and I would say probably 5 very different looks. And so we have, a couple of lefties. We have a hard lefty and Emily Kennedy. Like I always say, like, oh, I wish I had a lefty, throwing 70. Well, I have one of those, so check. So I'm like, don't mess that one up, right? And then Madison Preston is a lefty down baller with just 12 inches of break, with great sink on her ball, obviously, and really mirrors well with her changeup. So you have 2 lefty options, and then you have Grace Uribe, who is somebody that's coming along really nicely this fall, and she'll kind of, I would say, suck up some innings that maybe in the middle of the game. She also hits and will play outfield for us, so she's battling in kind of all those pieces. But she increased her miles per hour this fall by 5 miles an hour, which for me, I was just like, that's amazing. She just really took in kind of what we were doing, and she's connected very well kinetically. Like her movement is really good when she's hitting and throwing, and we just had to clean up a couple of things from a pitching standpoint, and we really got to see some huge gains from a velocity standpoint. And then we have Shaylee Ackerman, who also last year pitched and hit and ran, and so we kind of took away, but she was always injured. She never kind of was able to get through a whole season. So this year, moving forward, she's just going to pitch. And I thought that was one of the most unselfish things as a player. Here I am, I come in her senior year, right? Like, she's been pretty successful, and I'm like, hey, I just want you to pitch. And without hesitation, she's like, okay, I'll do whatever you think. And I think that really represents what Texas A&M is about, is kind of like, all right, let's go, and then the last one we have is Emily Levitt. So she's a righty. She's a transfer in from Minnesota, also throws pretty hard, and so I think we have some really, really different looks and really some great options. And so that's kind of how we have thrown them this fall, is, giving them a couple innings here. We'll do some lineup matchups because we have that ability and that depth in our pitching, arena.
Do you see it being by committee? Do you think it'll just kind of play itself out during the season, and you see certain players maybe establish certain roles or a command of the staff? How do you envision the staff here for this upcoming season?
Yeah, we're still really putting that together. We put them in some purposeful situations in the fall, and we're kind of analyzing how they did in certain situations. So who matched up well with lefties, who matched up well with slappers, and righty power. Like there's just a lot of things that I think that we're looking at from a data standpoint. So we'll look at that, but I think we're going to be a pitch by committee, but I could see a couple of them really emerge as true leaders. So I'm never going to pull that back. I'm going to let them go ahead and develop into those. But I do think that we're going to be, a staff, and really, they're excited about that, and they really enjoy, like, hey, I know so and so is coming in after me, so this is how you're going to match up well, and those are kind of the conversations we've been having in the bullpen. So that's been fun.
Offensively, who are some of the players, returners, and new faces you think will contribute to the offense? And it's hard to compare offenses with what you had at Arizona State. You had a more veteran group the last couple of years, the Parks and over that. So maybe that's not a fair comparison, but how much of this offense will be similar to Arizona State or close to it? Maybe not right away in year one, but close to it. How close do you think you could be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take us a while, to be honest with you. We came into a very different, I guess, group, of kind of, how their makeup is and kind of what they're great at. We're in a bigger ballpark. Triples are definitely in effect. So the speed is going to be something that we look to recruit towards as we move forward. Whereas at ASU, there really wasn't a triple factor. Like the speed thing wasn't really something that was a huge part of our game. And so I think right now we do have that ability at A&M. There is some speed here that we will definitely take advantage of and utilize. I think power wise, we're always going to swing. I mean, Coach Harger is always, he is who he is, and really it's about off the wall, over the wall. That's kind of his philosophy. So you want to, that's how you take that intent in that batter's box is. We don't want to just touch a ball. We want to square it up and drive it. And so obviously Trinity Canyon, she had a tremendous fall season for us. I look at her as being somebody that's going to do, some big things offensively. Julia Cottrell. I mean, you can't really talk about offense without kind of mentioning her name. That was a great get for us. And she's been hitting the ball well. That kid almost has too good of a hand-eye coordination. That's what I told her. I was like, Julia, like, just because you can hit it doesn't mean you should hit it. And so she's like, I know, coach, I know. So, but she's been fun. One of our freshman kids, we call her AC, but Ayana Coleman, I mean, she hit 3 or 4 balls over the scoreboard at Davis Diamond. I mean, she can really, when she connects, it's going. And so there's a lot of pieces that I think are fun and things that I think that we're going to surprise some people with. But I think you're going to see a more balanced attack from us. We might put, people in motion a little bit more. At ASU, we really didn't have those options. So, we'll kind of see. We'll see what's in our pockets.
No, that makes sense. Adapting there a little bit, and obviously you're in a different in the state of Texas, which is a rich state for softball, for talent. Great programs across the state, so the competition's stiff. With got Texas, got Baylor, got Texas State with Ricky Wooder, you got North Texas, Texas Tech, on and on and on. What is that adjustment like, recruiting in Texas?
Yeah, I don't know. Recruiting is recruiting. We've had relationships with a lot of these programs. Just being at ASU, one of our states that we had really focused in on at ASU was Texas, and we were starting to see some of those relationships really start to come to fruition. They just decided now we're over here. So that's been really easy, to be honest with you. And just, I think it's all about spending time with people and them getting to know who you are and what you're about. And I think these travel ball organizations will send their kids or, encourage those conversations when they know who they're sending them to and what kind of people they are. So I think that piece has been, pretty easy. Since my Stanford days, we've had a Texas connection, or I have. And even at, Fresno State, we looked at a couple Texas kids, so I think that piece, has always stayed with me because Texas is such a huge softball hotbed, right, for talent. And I think, when you think of athletics, I mean, Texas kind of covers every different type of athlete. And so I think it's something that you always have to keep on your radar. But definitely something like, it was weird this fall. I stayed in the state of Texas of the 6 weekends, I was in Texas 4 of them. Whereas before I was in, Arizona for a couple, in Southern California, maybe Texas once. We made it a point to stay home and watch that local talent. It was nice.
One of the other things too, from a scheduling standpoint, more
Yeah.
potential bus trips to get quality games. You didn't have that at
Yeah.
Arizona State. I mean, did you ever even bus during the regular season up there? Probably
No.
not, right? You had to
Well, Tucson, yeah, we
do
would
so
travel.
other than
Yeah.
conference, right? Right.
Yeah, no, that is actually scheduling has been extremely easy. Obviously, this year we kind of came into things a little late, and things aren't going to be quote unquote normal. But I think moving forward, I mean, that piece was, we just have so many options. In the state of Arizona, you have GCU, which Shannon's done a tremendous job there. I mean, goodness. And then obviously U of A, and you can't play U of A pre-conference. So like you didn't really have a lot of options. And so now we're looking at 15, different places that we can bus to, or they can bus to us, and schedule on a, yearly basis.
That's why. Is that going to be an adjustment for you because you've been so accustomed to flying so much that now you're going to? I mean, that's interesting. I'm really fascinated to see how you adjust to busing. I mean, you've bussed obviously, especially, but still, it is gonna. That is a bit of an adjustment.
It is. I think it's an adjustment for me, not so much for our players.
Right. Right. I meant you.
Yeah.
The players, I can figure it out.
Yeah.
I was worried about you, coach. I was more thinking about
well, I
you.
appreciate it. Yeah, no. Well, hopefully we can get them to come play at A&M, and then I won't have to bus, and everything's good, right?
Well, that facility will help attract opponents there. But of course, you mentioned the schedule. You're going to play at Clearwater for the big ESPN tournament, week 2. So that's going to be a lot of focus there. And then you're going to Mary Nutter back to back. So you're going to find out a lot about your team early, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. We're going from that direction to that direction. So, but you know what? Like, what better way to find out kind of who you are, and what we're about, and we're going to have bumps in there. And I think how you respond to those bumps is really going to be indicative of how our season's going to go. And so, I think obviously, I don't know. I look forward to those things. I do. I really want to see, like, okay, what are we made of? Like, last year at ASU, we came and played at Texas tournament, and it was 30 degrees. Like, but I think it really helped us late in the year when we're at UW. It's rainy and cold in May. Like, how is it raining and cold in May? But it is. But we had that to like pull from, right, from earlier in the year. And so I think these types of opportunities are I don't know, they're great learning experiences for your team to be able to pull from, and hopefully use that in order to kind of, get through some of the hard stuff you're going to encounter in season.
Probably in a couple of years, the SEC will grow, and among the growth there will be Texas coming in. I only bring that up because Mike White, obviously, he's at Texas. You two, of course, go back to the days of the Pac-12 and will be reunited in the SEC. I think people have made comparisons, obviously, because both have similar tracks there. That's going to be kind of funny in a couple of when you're kind of seeing Mike across there once again, and once again in a rivalry, you're going to be involved. You go from going from Arizona State to Texas A&M down the road here.
Yeah, I love it. I think, when you look at, you want to play in the best conference, when you add in both Texas and Oklahoma, whether it be in 2 years or whatever, I let those people, kind of sort that out. But, adding those two things, those two really quality programs, I'm excited. I mean, let's get after it. Let's compete. Let's play some really, really good softball, and good softball that's going to be on nationwide. I mean, you're talking about the exposure of our sport. Like, who wouldn't want to watch SEC softball?
All the time too. It's going to be accessible all over the place, and all the games broadcasted on the SEC Network Plus, and then SEC Network and the ESPN. You're right. It's huge, and people get to see the facilities, marquee matchups every weekend. Couple national topics. Volleyball and soccer this year have seeded 32 teams on a trial period. They're trying to create more parity in the brackets, try to avoid the regional matchups, if you will, where the team goes within the 400-mile radius. Is that something you think softball should look into? Because, or you like it the way it is in softball?
Honestly, what I would like is for us to get seeded 1 through whatever, and it be a hard 1 through whatever. I think we've worked too hard in our season to be, I don't know, confined to a regional. matchup.
Yeah.
I think really the athletes deserve better than that, to be honest with you. And they've worked too hard for us to be like, oh, well, you're going to always go here because you can bust to that. Like, is that really what the student athlete experience is about? Or is it about us, playing our hearts out and getting seated where we need to get seated? And I think obviously it's very clear of where I stand, but
I'm with you.
I think that we need to just seed it and play the game the way it's supposed to be played.
Right. Earn what you did on the field. Don't let it, because of a bus trip versus flight, determine where you're playing. And, don't hurt the team that's hosting either, because it goes both ways. Where there's some regional, and you've seen kind of at the result of that, where you've had some tough regionals as a result, because certain teams, well, we can only fly them here versus a true seeding.
Yeah. Well, our seeding last year our regional and super regional was pretty fun.
I wasn't going to touch it, but yeah, that was interesting in itself.
Yeah.
It is what it is. We could spend hours on that. I do want to instead touch on, you mentioned earlier, you're a Giants fan.
I am.
Which I did not know that. Once we're done recording, I'm going to show you my Giants hat, because I'm actually a Giants fan now. Who's your favorite Giant of all time?
Of all time?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you can't go wrong with Barry Bonds, which that'll bring up,
Sure.
But I mean, I love to watch him hit, but I really, Matt Williams and Will Clark were my two growing up.
Yeah, Will the Thrill.
Yeah.
That's my guy. That's my favorite player. I was hoping you would say it. So now I know you're a hardcore Giant. Now I know.
I'm a lefty. Like, I used to emulate his stance, and yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yes, that's good. That was my favorite player growing up. I mean, I'm a Marlins fan, but I grew up a Giants fan because the Marlins didn't exist. So Will Clark was my favorite player.
I love Will.
I try to imitate the swing. Failed miserably at it. So you need it when you play Mississippi State down the road in Starkville. You need to kind of check it, because obviously he made his college career there at Mississippi State. They honor him all over the place there. So did you get to go to the park now, where I don't know what it's called now? They change the name all the time, but it's got McCovey Cove and everything. It's one of my favorite baseball parks. I'm assuming you've been there.
Yeah, we go. Actually, my daughter and I, she loves baseball as well. We both started playing baseball. So I started off playing baseball with the boys, and then she did the same thing. So each year we always, I surprised her, and we'll go to San Francisco and stay on the wharf. And yeah, so we make it a point to every year make it back to the city and watch some San Francisco. I'll get them always, like when I was at ASU, when they come and play the D-backs, because I love Mad Bomb. I had a little crush on Mad Bomb.
Oh,
anybody that snot rockets on the mound, like, I love it. So
no, that's true. Matt Williams done well for him as coach there, and that makes sense. Were you bummed out Aaron Judge didn't go back home? He stayed with the Yankees there. You did end up getting Carlos Correa in the offseason.
Yeah, yes, I was, but it didn't make sense for him to come to San Francisco, if I'm being honest with you. I always think of things from a business standpoint. He's not going to break home run records there. Like, it's a pitching ballpark. I think we really need to hone in on that pitching piece. That's when we were great. When you look at when we won all these World Series, we had just tremendous pitching, and I think that's kind of our MO, and I think we need to go back to that.
Had a good team 2 years ago. Got hosed by the seeding because you had to play the Dodgers and the Wild. I mean, softball's not the only one it's got. I mean, even baseball has its own issues on the seeding and tournaments.
I do
and how
hate
they
the Dodgers. I can.
I know that. That makes a ton of sense. Did you ever meet Matt Williams? Because I know he spent a lot of time in Arizona, as you mentioned. Did you ever get to cross?
No, I haven't.
How does that not happen during all that time? Oh,
I know. I guess busy doing what we do.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Jobs. Well, now you've got multiple options in the state of Texas with the Rangers and their new stadium, and then obviously the Astros. So you got multiple parks options now. I don't know if you've ever been to those stadiums. I've been to Houston. That's incredible.
I've been to. That's another one of my bucket lists, is to get to every ballpark at some point. So
how many have you been to?
Probably about 12 now, right now. So. I really want to get a Camden. That's my next that I got to get. Yeah.
So, you got to been there. I've been there. Visited my family up there, Camden Yards, Nats Park. You can hit both at the same time. It's really nice.
Okay. So I'll have to, I was able to, I took my daughter, she was just turned 1, and we went and did the Yankee Stadium before it tore down. So I haven't been to the new one, but I wanted to be to the old one because I wanted to be where great players had played. And then we obviously did Boston at that time too. And that was, if you love baseball, I don't know that the Red Sox, I don't know that it gets any better than that. So I
That's pretty good. I was at Yankee Stadium for the tour before they tore it down as well.
okay. Yeah.
So now, is your hatred of the Dodgers preclude you from going to Dodger Stadium?
Yeah, I will not step foot. I'm a little crazy. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's all right. That's
Yeah.
hardcore. I like that. That's good.
I've been to the Angels Stadium, but I will not step foot in the Dodgers. No. And why would you? No.
That's true hardcore rivalry. I like that. No, that's good.
Yeah.
Make total sense. Total sense
Yeah.
on that. All right. Last thing before we let you go, as you get closer to the start of the season, you open at home. First of all, what do you think is going to go through your mind that first opening day when you're at home? What do you think will cross through your mind? What do you think will be? What will your emotions be like? Is it just another opening day? It can't be just another opening day. It'll be unique for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I don't know. It'll kind of whatever kind of goes through my head where we're at that point in time. But I'm always, are we going to execute our game plan? Where are we at from a mental? For me, it's very business. So yes, it's different because it's at a different place, but it's kind of all the same. Are we prepared? Like, do we understand our game plan? Like, who's in a good mental spot? Like, who's, where are we at with, who's available? Those types of things. And then obviously always wanting to make a great first impression. We have Sharonda will be there in our home opener.
Oh, that's right.
She's bringing, yeah. So it's going to be kind of special. So hopefully, she has a good weekend. We have a good weekend. We beat them. It'll be, I told her she can have a good weekend except for when we play them. So, but yeah, I mean, I just think for me, it's just, putting out a great product because the fan base is there. And I'm just excited about what's going to happen at, in Aggieland.
Yeah, no, it's going to be tremendous. Sharana being there, that'll be unique. And then obviously later in the schedule, you got some familiar faces. You'll face Arizona after one more time up in Clearwater during that tournament. You'll face UCLA at Mary Nutter. That'll be unique too, as you get to see them one more time there during your during the non-conference, a challenging non-conference, and then obviously the SEC schedule gauntlet, which is tremendous. There, I know you'll all be excited. What's going to be the key for your group when you get going to your season? What are a couple keys for your team to have be successful and accomplish your internal goals?
I really think it's going to start and end in that circle, which it always does. But can we, with our different looks, I think we have an opportunity to really keep teams off balance. So I think it's going to be controlling the circle. I think it's going to be playing clean defense. And then it's going to be obviously, producing enough, producing runs when we need to produce runs. So it's one thing when you're up by 10 and you're hitting and hitting and hitting, but can you produce runs when you need to produce runs? So we have just a chart of kind of how we play the game and what's important to us. And so as long as we stay in that mode versus kind of what's going on in the game, but keeping our heads kind of like, we need to, work each at bat needs to be 8 pitches. And here's the reason why. And so just worrying about those things and turning the lineup over, that's what I think is going to be key for us. But I think it's going to begin or end in that circle. So the pitching coach.
Well, you have a good track record. I think you'll be all right. Well, we look forward to seeing your team once it gets going in the season, and obviously you'll be unique. Congrats on the move. And I know we're excited to see what you could do there at A&M, and I'll be hopefully seeing cross paths in Clearwater there. But in the meantime, happy holidays. And thanks for taking the time to talk to us. You've always been kind to us on the show through the years, so really appreciate you taking the time here in the holidays, and we'll talk soon. Thanks for talking to us.
Absolutely. Have a great one and Merry Christmas.